Hello. In this video lecture, I just want to talk about terms and concepts that are good to know in Introduction to Philosophy and Introduction to Philosophical Analysis. And I don't have these terms alphabetized. I don't have them in any other order than, well, which terms might be really good to learn first, and then we'll build off that. I'll also add terms or phrases that I think are going to be good to know as we begin this investigation and as you carry it out. I have my notes here, all right, and I intend also to discuss the nature of philosophical inquiry, and then I'll end with discussing the life connect. You know, how does this connect to life? So let's talk about some terms. I may or may not also supply these terms as an attachment, just so that you have the list of the words. Now, I'm not going to fill them out for you. When I give you the attachment and you get the terms list, if I give you that, I'm still expecting you to look at the video and to find the definitions I've given and to write them out and to study them and to know them. Now, these terms, if I had 5 sources here and we looked through them and we saw how each author or groups of authors define these terms, and then we had, say, some more critically accepted sources like the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy, they may add much more to it. So I'm not saying that this is carefully parsed definitions, but they are going to be on track and they're going to help us get started. So the first word I want to give you is ontology. O-N-T-O-L-O-G-Y. Ontology. And ontology is the study of being. What does it mean to exist, to truly exist? The absence of being, of reality, by extension. Ontology is the study of reality. The next term is one closely linked to this, and so which goes first, this one or that one? It doesn't really matter, I guess. But epistemology, E-P-I-S-T-E-M-O-L-O-G-Y. Its root meaning to know, knowledge, and the idea is the study of knowledge. Now, by that we mean the study of how it is that we know. There are some key concepts in this term we'll have to parse out or look at more carefully as we continue on in this class, and that is, for example, the distinction between belief and knowledge. The distinction between belief and conviction. What about the word intuition? So, what do we really mean when we say we know something? Let me see if I can get this right off the bat. I'm already entered into it, so here we go. Socrates and his famous fourfold distinction. There are those that know, that don't know that they know. Okay, so let me start. Here are some groups of people. One group is a group of people who don't know that they know. So that would be a group that fortuitously, has hit upon, say, the right path of action or the right opinion, the right sentiment, but they don't know it. But nevertheless, in the end of the day, it's right. So I asked my 5-year-old, what's 7 times 7 times 7? And he looks at me and says, 21. He doesn't know that he knows. And even then, it could be, because that was a guess. He's guessed. In fact, right now his favorite number is 189 for some reason. Everything is 189. How many days till Christmas? 189. How many letters are we getting in the mail tomorrow? 189. Everything's 189. So, if he were just to blurt out 21, to my answer, 7 times 7 times 7 is 7 plus 7 plus 7. Got to get the question right. Is what? 7 times 3 is what? And he blurts out 21. Okay, he doesn't know that he knows, but then the question is, does he even know it? Isn't that just a guess? So this needs to be unpacked, this word knowledge. To continue on quickly with Socrates, he had another group of people those that don't know that they don't know. So you have people that don't know that they know, people that don't know that they don't know. Then you have another group, people that know they don't know, so they at least know what they don't know. The fourth group is people that know that they know. So we've got to really, which would be the group of people that are certain with conviction, properly certain about something. And let me ask you something about belief, because in our everyday talk we say things like, "Well, I believe it's going to rain today," and we seem to suggest that there's room for error, right? We're kind of making a guess. But let's say we walk outside and raindrop is falling on our heads and everything, and then we say, well, I know it's raining. But, okay, the statement, "it is raining," that you just said, do you not also believe it? So now you believe that you know it's raining. You believe facts as well as you believe the statement, "I believe it's going to rain today." So the word belief needs to be unpacked too. Epistemology is a crucial study. Now there are some ground rules that we need to be aware of and try to learn. One is logic. The rules of logic need to be followed. I would say it is never right to deviate from the rules of logic, propositional logic, when you're trying to carefully piece together the pieces of a puzzle that lead you in a right direction towards a set of propositions at the end that are well established and worthy of belief. You cannot break the rules of logic and get away with it. All right. So that, well, the terms of logic fall under this larger category of epistemology, the study of knowing. Also related to this word is semiotics. Okay, semiotics is the study of signs, the study of meaning, I guess we could say, but meaning in the sense that it derives from signage. And epistemology will, semiotics, okay, SEMIOTICS, semiotics. The idea here is if you truly know something, you can articulate it, okay? But as soon as you articulate it, the question is, into what do you articulate the thing you say you know? And it's almost invariably going to be into a code of signs and connected to their meanings. So we have a system at play, right? A system of signs that can be interpreted correctly by a lexicon that's already been accepted by the group in which communication happens. So now, I don't want you just to think of a lexicon as a dictionary, but the lexicon is expanded beyond just a collection of formally, posited definitions, but rather the way people understand others. So, if you're at an auction and you do this little number at the right time, somebody up front looking at you, i.e. the auctioneer, is going to know that movement has meaning beyond the material actual movement of the finger. So in my chair I've been moving back and forth. Let's just call that material movement because it's just movement. But if there were somehow already encoded in the group of teachers and students some sort of lexicon that would allow you to say, hey, as soon as he does this 4 times, it means something. It means that I don't know what it means because I'm making this up, but obviously we don't have that because we just don't. I know that this doesn't mean anything to you, and it doesn't mean anything to me. It's sort of material, natural movement. But in the auction, this means something, or whatever. I actually have never been to an auction, but I see them in movies. Okay, that means something, and it means something because it is a sign that has been interpreted before to mean something, and that has entered into sort of like the cultural registrar or memory of a group of people, and they know what it means. So that would be a lexicon. Anything that allows you to look at a symbol. Now here I am also taking movements to be a symbol, and we have this all the time. We have this, and we have this, and we have this. I mean, what has ever caused this to mean good or assent? Yes, agreement. I mean, I know that it was at play in the Gladiators, but did they make that up? Was it even something before that? But we just know that this means good. So I can use this as a symbol because it evokes in the audience meaning. And meaning. Now let's make a crucial difference here in these terms, as long as we're working with terms. I'm going to try to make these videos around 30 minutes long. I see we're already a third of the way in, so just so you know, I may not get through all these terms. Well, we'll do that again in the next video. But something can have meaning, okay? Like we might say, well, that was a meaningful encounter, okay, or that was a meaningful gesture. And okay, now I always struggle with gesture and gesture. Gesture. Well, a meaningful wave of the hand. Okay. Gesture, that's what it is. Well, what do we exactly mean by that? Do we mean that it was full of meaning because there were a lot of signs and symbols used, as maybe someone who knows ASL, American Sign Language, might be able to do? I don't even know the letter A, B, I don't know. But, you know, if you were to do all of that, of course, all of this has meaning, right? Because it can communicate a proposition from one person's mind to the mind of the audience. So we can say that has meaning. We say it's a meaningful gesture. But what if we mean meaning as in terms of, well, that meant a lot to me emotionally, or it had value to me. Now, what I'm trying to say is there's a whole nother realm of things we mean when we say that was meaningful, and we kind of mean that was significant, that was valuable, that was appreciated, that was a meaningful talk I had with that person. Well, of course it had meaning. You used words, right? English, you can understand words. That's full of meaning. But you also meant to say that turned out to be a valuable time. Okay, so we need to really use two words here. One is meaning, which I'm going to say let's relegate that to the realm of semiotics. That's what a sign does when it awakens or evokes within its audience the definition that it is connected to within the context it is given. And then there is significance, okay? And that is what comes about when someone values the utterance or the object or whatnot. So obviously there needs to be, let's just be clear with our terms, okay? Which, you know, I may as well just take a little rabbit trail here and say here's another term we need to be aware of, and that's isomorphic. Isomorphic, okay? If something is isomorphic, then you have one meaning for one symbol. And you never equivocate. Now when you equivocate, you use one symbol and it could have two meanings. And someone else, if you don't clarify it, may just take a whole different realm altogether. And so I'll tell you, for example, hey, I'm going to go to the bank tonight. And right now you might be thinking something. Well, bank, okay. He's going to the bank. What do you think I mean? Well, I didn't finish. What if I really need to finish and say something? I'm going to the bank tonight to catch fish for supper. Well, now you need to understand I meant river bank, right? Not the bank that you put money in, which you may have initially thought I meant. So if I'm not careful and I say I'm going to the bank tonight, my audience might automatically start interpreting that utterance along the lines of what has been usually meant with that word. Because I believe in our culture we use B-A-N-K to refer to a depository of money much more often than we use it to refer to the confinement of a river or a stream. So if I don't clarify that and I continue talking about how my trip to the bank is going to go or what I'm going to do there, we might be apparently making conversation here, but really misunderstanding each other because we equivocated. We use the same symbol. The symbol is loaded. It has a couple of reference, couple of meanings. Reference is meaning. in just a superficial way of looking at it, a couple of meanings, and we get confused. So equivocation, isomorphic, and those two terms shouldn't go together. If something is truly isomorphic, it's impossible to equivocate. Isomorphic language has been a goal for many philosophers for a long time, and many philosophers have alternately come to believe that it's an impossibility. Because the human animal, which separates us from artificial intelligence, some would say, has the ability to misuse symbols and to pun, to make jokes. So and to know that you're making jokes. Oh, that's something else altogether. But so the pun and the lie, but more so the pun has to do with purposeful equivocation, and the very fact that we can pun suggests to some people that there's never a way, by essence of who we are, we cannot ascribe to an isomorphic language. All right, so let me get through some more words here. Let's go back to epistemology. Now, epistemology is connected to semiotics because if you know something, you should be able to encode it in a symbol, in a symbolic proposition that can be interpreted and understood. Another way to say that is if you really know something, you should be able to articulate it, to say it. Okay. If you don't, then you intuit it, or you're guessing at it, or it's a response it's an emotional response you're trying to articulate, which is hard to do. We can do it only by analogy. So when you say I feel warm and all gooey inside, maybe you're trying to articulate the I don't know, the emotion you get when you're in love or something. I was a not so hot example, but anyway, the state of being in love, the state of being hungry. We have a word for it, hungry, but obviously, how else would you describe it? Well, you just kind of can't. So how do you know you're hungry? I guess you just look inside, right, and see. So there are some limits to these definitions I'm giving you here, but let's go ahead and run with the idea that if you truly know something, you can put it into language. And let me stipulate a condition then that would help us develop the distinction between knowledge and intuition, and that is you would be able to intuit that you're hungry. And let's just say then you would know whatever else it is that you can actually put into language. So semiotics then has a connection to knowledge, all right, because it is the whole collection of symbols and signs at your disposal that helps you articulate knowledge. All right. So again, here I'm kind of in this little bit of a trap here, but let me ask you to think about say a video camera. Okay, let's put a video camera up, and let's just leave the room. So it's just the camera running, and it records activity that's in the room. Now let's say someone comes into the room and steals some money that was from a chest there in the room, or a drawer in the room. Does the camera know something has been stolen? Well, it has that data recorded, right? But does the camera, the bit of machinery itself, is it able to say, aha, something has been stolen? I wonder what people are going to do with this data that I've recorded. I wonder if they're going to use this data to capture the thief, because I know somebody now has been stolen. So, I can't say that the camera knows something has been stolen. The camera is a device that has recorded the data that allows someone else to know. See, so we seem to really use the word knowledge in relation to people and minds. So there's another distinction here made in philosophy between the mind and the brain. Okay, the brain seems to register sensory data. The mind seems to reflect upon it. All right. So the key word here is a reflection, and when you reflect upon something, you remove yourself from it and you gaze upon it in terms of a representation of it. So I want to ask you now to reflect upon Your first bicycle. You remember the first bicycle? Can you reflect upon it? You see how you and your mind are using memory and images. Obviously, you don't have the bike in your mind, okay? So you have some sort of collection of symbols in there that you are using to reflect upon your bicycle. All right. Can you write down the description of your bicycle? Can you write down the date you had it, that sort of thing? I mean, you may not be able to remember it right now, but in theory, can you find that information out and then write it down? So the process of reflection then seems to imply the process of removing yourself away from the direct contact of the thing itself and examining it via a collage of symbols or images or whatnot that represents that thing. And it is that collage, that plane of imagery, of symbols, all right, that you can then translate into words. So that whole thing, we say you know. And semiotics helps you do this. It helps you do it correctly. I'll have another video on semiotics later that I'll need to draw things out for you on, so I'm going to have to wait off on that, but I'll make a note here. Do video on semiotics with a board graphics handy. Okay. Now let's do some more terms here. Axiology. Axiology is the study of the good or the worthy. Axion in Greece would, when classical Greek would be worthy. Axios, axii, axion, yeah, worthy. So the way we'd use it here is the study of the good man, the good person, the good soul, a good action, pragmatic action, prudent action. There are many ways, many subcategories within this. It's also known as ethics. Ethics, okay. What would a good man or good woman do? What does it mean to be good? What are the good paths or the proper paths to take in order to be just, in order to be successful, which are two different things. Things like that. That would be axiology. Okay. So far we have, of the major terms, axiology, ontology, epistemology, semiotics. Well, what about things like theology? Where does theology fit in? Okay. Well, it could be in ontology, the study of being, of the ground of being with a capital B. It could be in epistemology, and it could be in axiology, because axiology seems to suggest that the good, well, some parts of axiology, a certain way to investigate it, leads one to hypothesize that there needs to be an ultimate ground for the good, and that would be in God. Now, historically, theology has received its own category, its own discipline. That has drastically fallen away. Nowadays, in the majority of the minds and the groups and the places that do philosophy professionally, a much more descriptive approach is advocated, and you would find, say, studies of religion, but definitely not theism and not theology. Now, of course, you're going to have pockets of people that insist on theology as a proper discipline. So I can think of plenty of seminaries that have still degrees in theology, but for the most part, people have strayed away from the notion of theology as a subject and have replaced it with a descriptive analysis of, say, religion or anthropology, religion within anthropology, that sort of thing. And that does have its value, but it's dangerous if you believe that the notion of it's very dangerous if you fail to realize that the notion of God, not necessarily of religion, but the notion of God, if you just want to study it from a secular standpoint, has a grand history, and it's a history that you cannot ignore. And it's a history that will force you to consider, if studied correctly, might not there in fact still be a God? Well, still is weird, right? Because with God, it's either always has been or never has been. But the history of the idea of God needs to have its own category, I feel, because it is so rich, so fundamental, and so historically, the historical precedents are there that this is an idea that deserves its own room. Not just it's not a derivative idea of other ideas, as I've tried to present it. So I said, hey, well, in studying ontology, epistemology, and axiology, we are going to have to talk about this notion of God. But before all this, it was, philosophy was the handmaiden of theology. Theology was the major study, and other things have happened in our culture at large. Now, I'm not saying in everyone, but in our culture at large, even among the churches that tend to be more concerned about fitting in culturally, something has happened to derogate this idea that God is a notion that must be dealt with. And instead, what has arisen is a very deep-seated willingness to rather focus on the needs of man and how we can help this psychologically, and if entertaining religion as a permissive activity, as a legitimate type of activity that helps people, then religion can then have a place in our culture. But that is very man-centered, and it is very problematic. We'll see that it's problematic. But this is the type of notion that's at play when someone says, well, what religion are you? Right? And you will say one thing: Catholic, Buddhist, Islamic. And then you can discuss religions as if they were separate things. But and the idea behind that is if you're going to ask what religion are you, the very fact that you have to ask the question means that there is a collectivity of religions at play already. There are a couple of them, and you're trying to figure out which one this gal is in or this guy is in. But the fact that you then recognize that there are a couple of religions seems to suggest that all of them are equally valid as religions. Okay? Because if they were not equally valid as religion, if there was one that was not valid, it was not valid to consider it a religion, you would not include it in the group of religions you have there when you're trying to figure out which group this person belongs in. So the very fact that you allow for a group of religions to exist to have their legitimate place, to have their place in a language or in a culture, then you say they are all valid religions. And in the fact, if you have 5 valid religions and they're all valid, then how come it's wrong to be in this religion and not in that other religion if they're all valid religions? So there's a disconnect between religion and theology, by almost by definition, I would say. And by focusing on religion, then we don't have to worry about theology. And this is why I think that many higher institutions of higher education will not have a theology department anymore, but they will have a department of religion, or a department of it might be a sub-department in the school of anthropology. But that's still very, very well received today. Religion is not theology. I have deviated a bit, not unprofitably, I hope, and we are 30 seconds away from ending the 30 minutes that I want to keep these videos to. 30 minutes is a long time in terms of data in memory space and in terms of upload time. So I'm going to stop this. We'll continue again. I hope I have helped you. But one thing to do with all of these things is just let's go slow. I'll talk about this in the next video, and then I'll remind us later on that a philosophical analysis is not hasty. It's slow. And it may take years. Thankfully, this class is not going to take years. But the tools that I give you, you're just learning how to use the tools. And the process of actually using them and gaining profit from them it's a lifelong task. But it is what we have been called to do as humans.